Welcome everybody to the Deep Dives, this fresh started series which revolves around taking a as the name suggests, taking a deep dive down into the history of different countries in this homeworld. Now, the subject of today that I wanted to do is a country called the United Republics. Well, what is this country exactly known for? Well, it is, after all, known for the speed in which it spectacularly became industrial, after only being a farmer-growing nation in the late 1890s, to becoming an industrial power hub by the late 1930s. So, as always, I could go through this by saying that we gained independence in 1873, and then we did this, and this, and this, and that. But no, I don't think it's a good way to do that, because it would just sound quite shallow, if you know what I mean, where some nations are just written as, yeah, we did this, this, and this, and this. But, of course, I just want to start with the very beginning of this nation. As you all know, Cascadia is not that far from the nation that formerly colonized it, Caledonia. But the Caledonians had not known about this area, or the whole land surface of that area, until at least the 1500s. But why is that? The region was discovered by sailors in the early 1400s on the expedition to the other side. Historically, it was named Alteria. Alteria, as its name suggested from Latin, meant other side. Now, to your surprise, unlike, for example, real life, where the discovery of North America had the Europeans greeted with loads and loads of natives, there was quite a difference in here. North Eldoria was extremely sparse in population. Speaking of which, a land surface of up to 73 million miles, that in context is the size of the continental United States, only had a population of about 12 million people. And by people, I meant 12 million indigenous people. Now, this part of the history didn't come with sunshines and rainbows of cultural diversity, of melting pot culture and everyone living peacefully. They could only wish it was that way in the 1800s, or in the many centuries leading up to it. But of course, as any colonial power in the 1700s and 1800s would do, a lot of war crimes took place. And quite a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Slavery was one of them. But here's where it gets deeper. They didn't just import black people to work in the fields of Cascadia. They imported political prisoners out of mainland Sudan. After a series of failed revolutions from the 10 Years' War and the rise of republicanism in the 1810s and 1820s, the duchies and dynasties of the continent needed to find a way to depose of those dissidents. Caledonia was glad to take the job. One of the most notorious peoples to end up on this list were the Hagenauers and the Strysuders. Therefore, you might see a lot of names or surnames that have German ancestry, but it's not from settler colonies or from a glorious empire that once existed. No, they were political dissidents. Most of them political dissidents who supported republicanism in their own home countries. During the 10 Years' War, which were a series of conflicts that happened through mainland Lidan, there was one driving cause: the Erides Revolution, which kick-started the idea that serfdom can end, that royal families, who are believed to have been picked by God, can be easily overthrown. And the duchies of the mainland hated that. So, they began sending any dissidents out across the Amzi Ocean into one of the many prison camps that litter this country today. As a matter of fact, it was that bad that the incarcerated population in Cascadia hit a top of some 8 million people. At any given time in 1868, incarcerated people outnumbered free settlers 2-1. Now, in 1873, the lid finally came off, and it was time for a war of independence. In the mid-1800s, the people of Cascadia started a revolt, the Revolt for Freedom in 1864. Over the next 5 years, the freedom movement gained a large momentum. Militias carried out attacks on the colonial authorities in revolt of the government in Cascadia. Caledonia responded by mobilizing troops on the ground to go to war and prepare for attacks on villages, like the Battle of Mount Verdania in 1871, when the town of Marston went under a siege by government for 4 brutal months, or the clash in Ellingston Field in 1873. Nationalists were important in the war. The Cascadian Nationalist Army, now known as the Cascadian Defense Forces, CDF. The Caledonians were pushed out. And, however, the Caledonians did not recognize the nation of the United Republics for another 5 years until 1878. Now, 1878 to 1900. What was happening in that time? Well, Cascadia was found to have enormous iron ore deposits in the south, particularly in the coastal states like Sunchester, Rockbridge, and Greater Camden. Manhasset also had a good amount of coal deposits as well. So, in 1879, the first railway lines connected Hazelmont Rockbridge to New Shearwater Manhasset. That was just passenger rail. At that time, there were already numerous freight lines across the entire country. Now, I could not make a full explainer video on the entire history of the United Republics. Given the time it took to edit this entire video, I might as well split this into 3 parts. So until then, I want you just to stay tuned, because I will make another set of videos soon. But also, since it took me so long, just be sure to at least leave a like or subscribe. And I just spared you the annoyance for saying that at the start of this video, because I just wanted to talk about all of this first.